In the last 4 years, there's been a lot of policy that Justin Trudeau has put forward that it's expensive virtue signaling, right? It's things that aren't going to materially do or impact what they're supposed to do, but they cost you money. And a perfect example of this is the carbon tax, right? So this $40 a ton carbon tax, there's been no data to show that it's going to materially reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Canada, especially over the time period that he's committed to. But we do know that it's increasing the cost of everything for many Canadian families, and costs of transport of goods and stuff, that all gets passed down to the consumer or the taxpayer. And I think that that's why many governments at the provincial level in this country have changed over. Part of it anyways is because people are opposed to this carbon tax. It doesn't reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but it makes life more expensive. Now the problem with the Prime Minister is he comes from a position of privilege. And if you come from a position of privilege and you're asking people who don't have that privilege to pay more, you really have to put yourself in those shoes. So in the case of the carbon tax, I mean, I don't think Justin Trudeau has once ever sort of recognized or tried to identify with the fact that for some people in Canada, it is a choice between a carbon tax based tank of gas for their van versus maybe not being able to make the rent or not, right? Or put their kid in an extracurricular activity, or I could go on and on. Like, these are choices that families have to make. And so that's a problem with the carbon tax. Is in a country like Canada where it's cold, there's not a lot of well-integrated public transit, and we're agriculture-based, we're natural resources-based economy, there's not a lot of substitute goods for that, right? So you have to do it. And that's where, I think Justin Trudeau loses the story a lot on these things. But there's probably no better example of this than yesterday. And for those of you who haven't seen this, scroll back through my video feeds. I posted this. Justin Trudeau was asked by a reporter, because he'd made this announcement on plastics, which is an important issue, but he was asked, well, what is your family doing to reduce plastic waste in Canada? And he gave this answer that was just bizarre. And please watch it. Please go back and watch it if you haven't. But to me, what spoke out of this the most was the fact that he really hadn't given this any thought at all. And to me, that's a leader who doesn't empathize, who doesn't try to understand the impact that their policy is going to have on Canadians. He should have been able to answer that question, and he should have been able to give more detail about how he was going to prevent any potential negative impacts on Canadians or mitigate those with a change in policy. So I raised this in the House of Commons today, this sort of out of touchness, and I raised it directly with the Prime Minister. Watch his answer.
When asked what his privileged family was personally doing to help protect the environment, the Prime Minister answered with nonsensical blather that could best be interpreted as, nothing really, but let them eat cake. From a box. Canadians are tired of this ineffectual, carbon-taxing, drink-box water bottle, expensive virtue signaling. When will this out-of-touch Prime Minister stop telling Canadians to do what he says, but not what he does?
An honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to choose to believe that somewhere in there was a question on the environment from the Conservative Party of Canada, which is quite wonderful. Although I will say it has been 409 days that we have been waiting for the Conservative Party to put forward a plan to fight climate change, or even to recognize that climate change is a problem, or even to recognize that climate change contributes to extreme weather events. We know, Mr. Speaker, the time to act is now, because it is not possible to have a plan for the economy without having a plan for climate.
He didn't really answer the question, right? Like, there was a lot of false accusations and deflection, and to me, this is a real weak spot for this Prime Minister. He should have been able to answer the question that I asked him. He should have been able to push back with some sort of response that reassured Canadians that he personally understood the cost of his policies and why Canadians should be taking those on and backed up by some sort of fact or data. It just wasn't there, right? And to me, that's a pretty good summary of his failures on a lot of policy issues. He just doesn't think this stuff through, right? So anyway, just wanted to let you guys know that these are the sorts of things we're still raising in the House of Commons, even in the last few days of Parliament here. As you can hear, I've got a pretty intense cold, so apologies for my gurgling. But certainly keeping Justin Trudeau to account for that empathy or that understanding that policy that doesn't benefit Canadians but that hurts them, like the carbon tax. This is something that, he shouldn't be able to get away with. Working hard for you in Ottawa. Have a great day.